One of your principal beefs against Fauci is the way he handled the AIDS epidemic, which is something he's been universally lauded for. And we've had folks come on the show and raise issues before about how he handled, in particular, the drug AZT, and draw parallels between his fealty to that drug above all other treatments back in the 80s when treating HIV, and his fealty to the COVID vaccine at the expense of all other treatments in the past 2 years. So what does that tell us about Dr. Anthony Fauci?
Well, I think it speaks for itself. You know, AZT was horrendously toxic. It was developed originally by the National Cancer Institute as a chemotherapy drug, and it killed all the rats when they gave it to them. So, you know, chemotherapy drugs will kill you. Virtually 100% of them are going to kill you. They're designed to kill human cellular tissue. The hope is they will kill the tumor tissue before they kill the rest of you. And so when you give somebody a chemotherapy drug, it's only given for a couple of weeks. And then, you know, they look at what's happened to the tumor and what's happening to you. But this drug was regarded as so horrendously toxic that they threw it on the junk pile, and they didn't even patent it. And then, you know, when AIDS came along, of course, what they do when they find a new virus is they take all of these different compounds and they have petri dishes full of the virus, of live colonies, and then they put a dropper of toxic compound onto the petri dish and see if it kills the virus. If it kills the virus, they now have an antiviral drug, but they also have to find out whether it kills the human. And, you know, and with AZT or the rats, the AZT, it was regarded as too toxic to use for a 2-week course for chemotherapy. And GlaxoSmithKline found that it did kill HIV virus. And so they, you know, spearheaded this effort. They were called Burroughs Wellcome at that time. They spearheaded this effort to get it approved. And Tony Fauci, because he did not know at that point, NIAID had never developed the drug. It won jurisdiction over AIDS. Originally, the National Cancer Institute, which knows how to develop drugs, that's what they do. They inherited AIDS because the initial signal for AIDS was Kaposi sarcoma, which is a cancer. So it went to the National Cancer Institute. But then when Luc Montagnier said, wait a minute, we found HIV viruses in 47% of the men who have AIDS. Maybe the virus is causing the AIDS. Tony Fauci used that to say this is an infectious disease. It's not being caused by toxics. It's an infectious disease, and therefore it should come to NIAID, National Institute for Allergic and Infectious Diseases. He didn't, unlike National Cancer Institute, he did not know how to develop a drug. So it made him very dependent on GlaxoSmithKline. And that really was the beginning of his permanent association with drug companies. He needed to develop a drug fast. He put GlaxoSmithKline on employees and loyalists on all of the committees that approved new drugs or experimental drugs, and they kept everything out of the competition except for their drug. And then they rushed it through, and Tony Fauci helped them rush it through. They used a number of fraudulent tricks to get the drug approved. The drug was killing, AZT was killing everybody who took it in the study group. And what Fauci did and Burroughs Wellcome did is they started giving the people who they were giving AZT, they started giving them blood transfusions to keep them alive. And when you give somebody a blood transfusion, it makes them, when their body's filled with toxic chemicals, it makes them healthier and longer lived. And the only reason those people survived a 6-week drug trial was because they were getting these transfusions. And then he got the drug approved. on very, very little evidence and clear safety signals. And that drug, according to critics, killed 330,000 people over the next 10 years.
So by the time we get to, more present day, Anthony Fauci, you write in the book that he kind of went, not underground, but he kind of got quieter and left the national scene for a number of years and was running this organization and became a kingmaker and controlled a bunch of money. And, there was utter fealty to him, as there still is in this public health industry. So then you write that we had a couple of not real pandemics, but we had other problems with, bird flu and some other things and earlier SARS issues. And that he sees opportunity when those things happen. He sees an opportunity to what? Because you argue that he sort of saw the ultimate opportunity with COVID-19. NIAID, one of the things I talk about is the history of both CDC and NIAID. By the middle of the 20th century, epidemic infectious diseases, mortalities from infectious diseases had essentially disappeared. And it disappeared not because of vaccines, as is now claimed. It disappeared primarily because of nutrition, better sanitation, chlorinated water, electric refrigerators, road systems, reductions in overcrowding. And the reason I say this is not that you should believe me, but the CDC studied this question in the year 2000, along with Johns Hopkins, and they looked at the question, at the claim that vaccines had something to do with the reduction, this profound reduction, an 80% reduction in mortalities from infectious diseases since the beginning of the 20th century. And the scientists from CDC, and you can read this study, and Johns Hopkins, you can read this study in pediatrics, and it's called Guyer, Guyer 2000, Guyer et al. 2000. What they concluded is that vaccines had virtually nothing to do with this profound reduction in mortality from infectious diseases. The diseases were disappearing, not the disease themselves. People were still getting measles, they just weren't dying from it. But the mortalities had disappeared because of these engineering improvements. And what was happening at CDC and NIAID is they were losing relevance because very small numbers of Americans were dying from infectious disease. And the Reagan administration and its budget director in 1982, David Stockman, were actually publicly saying that we should abolish CDC. And as I point out in the book, there was memos going around saying we need to figure out infectious diseases to make ourselves relevant again. And so, what I show is that there's a series of fake pandemics that were done in 1976, right after Tony Fauci came to NIAID. There was a swine flu epidemic, a bird flu epidemic that was fake. In 2005, I think only one person died. There was a fake swine flu epidemic in 2009. Each time, they gave the vaccine companies immunity from liability, and they sold, tens of millions of dollars worth of unnecessary vaccines. Many of them caused profound impacts. And then the Zika pandemic was a fake pandemic. There was, Tony Fauci, who was claiming that Zika caused microcephaly, which is a smaller head. And he caused panic around the country. People were terrified. They were advising women not to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. Zika was coming to America. And then, the Ebola virus, et cetera. So there's actually one of somebody from his agency actually made a March Madness chart of all the phony pandemics that he's been drumming up over the years, and the triumph one is COVID. On that, then I reprint that in my book, and his signature is at the bottom of the page.
Oh, it's something that they've done again and again and again over time that it makes that agency relevant.
Okay, so you don't. Well, you tell me. Was the COVID-19 pandemic fake?
What do you mean fake? There were people dying of COVID-19 all over the world. It was a pandemic. It was a genuine pandemic.
Okay, that's what I've been going for, because you say these other ones were made up, and this one, we've got upwards of 5-6 million people dead. So you agree this one was real, and we needed somebody to manage it. But the question is whether he was the man for the job. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.